Oh, is Ann here? Ann Heffron? Jay, did you get any word that she may or may not be here?
No, I did not.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm gonna wait one more minute. She's usually not late, so let me just go ahead and do that. We'll start in another minute. Jay, on the application for to the zoning board, there's a typo in the text of the proposed wording for the motion. Should I mention that now or when the meeting begins? It's just a typo.
No, I don't think it needs to get mentioned. You're thinking you guys are gonna read it or adopt it as presented, and I'll just let me know what the typo is and I'll fix it in the written decision.
Okay, good. Okay, it's 6:01. Going to call to order the November 3rd, 2020 meeting of the South Kingstown Conservation Commission. First order of business is roll call. Mary Talbot Robiano.
Here.
Matt Bradywood.
Here.
Lorraine Jubert.
Here.
Christopher O'Connor.
Here.
And at currently, Ann Heffron is absent and Fern Wyman is absent as well. And we're also joined, I'm, by the way, David Flanders, and we're also joined by Jason Parker, our principal planner staff member. First order of business is approval of the minutes of the October 6th, 2020 meeting. Did anybody have any questions or pick up anything that should be changed? Okay, hearing nothing. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll motion to accept the minutes.
Hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Second order of business, correspondence and public comment. Jay, do we have any members of the public here who wish to say anything?
No, I do not believe we do. If anybody is in the public would like to speak, raise your hand. We do have the applicants waiting in the attendance.
Right. Yep. And any correspondence, Jay?
No.
Okay. Old business, discussion on the invasive species as it relates to subdivision and land development regulations. Lorraine, I'm going to let you run through this, but I just want to preview that with saying that due to the written material we received in the packet, we got rid of a lot of the confusion that we had last meeting, particularly as related to the in the weeds documents and all. And you have presented us a suggested text for the proposed change to the section, to the standards. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
There is one additional change I made shortly after I emailed this version, because I realized that the name of the American Association of Nurserymen had changed to American Nursery and Landscape Association. So I have a written copy that makes that change. Should I read this into the record?
We can make a motion that we adopt the plant material standards as proposed, as we had received it, with that one singular change, and then
Okay.
they can make that in text.
Okay, great. Excellent.
So I guess, does anybody have any further comments on this, things they want to add or questions on the publications we're referring to or anything else? Does anybody have anything to add? Because otherwise we're set to vote and we've discussed this for a couple of weeks. Okay. Well, Lorraine, I'll let you make the motion.
I make a motion to accept the revision to the plant materials standard section of the subdivision regulations based on the updated revisions dated 11/2/20 that were sent out to all the members, with the exception of the name of the association in the first part being American Nursery and Landscape Association rather than American Association of Nurserymen.
Any discussion? Or rather, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Do I hear any further discussion on the issue? Then we'll vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Very good. We can move on.
Mr.
New
Chairman?
business. Excuse me, Jay?
Yeah, I just want to clarify with you all that we will take this under advisement as we hopefully work into the subdivision regulations and the landscaping portion soon.
Right.
So when that comes up, rather than go to the planning board with a public hearing to amend the subregs for this, have undertaken a much larger project of updating them. So I'll kind of keep this at bay until we get to that chapter and then insert that or try to utilize this language in the new version of the subregs and most likely bring it back to you so you guys can see it and make sure it's along the same lines of what you were intending.
That sounds good.
So
right.
Jay, will we have an opportunity to review the other changes to the regs, particularly the landscaping section?
You can.
Could I request that then? I'd like to request that.
Yeah, we haven't completed, we're not complete at all. I mean, it's on the list of items to do, but we have not completed it yet.
For instance,
yeah.
Jay, I had proposed changes to the language in the type of trees to be planted instead of bald and burlapped. For instance, I wanted to allow that a containerized tree might be a much better choice. So, and you
Yeah,
said
those are all
you said you would
discussions.
pass
Go ahead, David.
this is a Zoom meeting. You said that you had passed those on to Rich Bouillonnaise.
Yeah, we would entertain all of that and we can bring it to you guys for comment without
Excellent.
issue.
Yep, that'd be great. Are we all set? Can you move on to the next item? That would be an advisory opinion to the zoning board, Montefort special use permit for the location of an on-site wastewater treatment system within 150 feet of a wetland, Heather Hollow Drive, AP 79-3 lot 15. Do we have any here representing the application?
Yeah, 1 second. I just promoted the wrong person. I believe. Yeah. Sorry, John. I think I brought you in mid introduction.
It's all right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. I'm John Kenyon, attorney for the applicant. The applicant's property is located on Heather Hollow Drive, and it's in an R80 zoning district. The property is currently vacant and is 1.6 acres in size. The applicant's proposing to construct a single-family home that would be serviced by a OWTS. The proposed house would meet all the zoning requirements for setbacks and lot coverage. However, the OWTS will be located within 150 feet of a wetland. Therefore, we're requesting a special use permit under section 504.1 of the zoning ordinance. The applicant has received approval for the OWTS from the state. Jason Clough is the applicant's engineer. I was going to have him briefly go over the existing conditions plan and then the proposed system. So Jason, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. As John mentioned, the site's located off of Heather Hollow Road, approximately 1.6 acres in area. Has frontage off of Heather Hollow and also off of Route 1. Existing conditions, there is a existing driveway and access easement to the adjacent property to the rear. That's Assessor's Plat 79-3 lot 6. So there is that on the lot. Under proposed conditions, we have a proposed 4-bedroom home. with an associated driveway. And the system that is proposed is a pressurized shallow narrow drain field. And we have, for pretreatment for that leach field, we have an Advantex AX20. And that is approved by the Department of Environmental Management. The leach field itself is located 102.3 feet from the wetland at its closest point. The location of the system is further restricted from being moved further away due to the existing access easement and driveway. We tried to place it as far away as we could. The site does not have a 100-year floodplain associated with it. In addition to the septic system that's proposed with the house, there's a well proposed for the water service. And I guess that's about it.
So this
What-
is not the plan that we reviewed, that we
This
received.
plan, the plan that's here on the screen that Jay posted there, that's the approved septic plan. The house has been rotated and the driveway has been flipped to the far side or further away from the wetland. So that the garage is on the left side instead of on the right side.
Mhm.
But the system that's proposed is in the same area.
Mr. Clough, we have a 4-bedroom house. What is the total square footage of the house?
Total square footage, you have the house itself
Right.
with the garage is
No, not the garage, just the house.
you have 40 by 32, 1280.
That's the footprint, right? But what is this? Is that the footprint or is that the total of everything?
I don't believe that's the total of everything.
I'd like to know that.
I think the total was 6,665 square feet.
Including the
Footprint.
garage, right?
Well, including the garage, the footprint is,
I'm not interested in the footprint. I'm
I
interested in
understand.
the total square footage,
Oh, square footage. Okay.
just of the house, of where the residence, what applies to the septic system, in other words.
So, David, I'm not sure, but I would guess that the house footprint is 2 stories, and then there's most like a living area above that garage. So
Okay.
you're
Well, I
looking,
would be interested, yeah, in the total square footage of the living area. In other words, the impact upon the septic system would be how many square feet?
looks like around 3,400 square feet.
Wow.
So that's quite a bit different. But the footprint is the same for the house and the garage from the previous plan?
House part was the same. The garage was increased. The width of the garage was increased by 12 feet. It used to be a 24 by 24. It's a 24 by 36 garage now.
Okay. There was also no mention of a living area above the garage. Does that have a bedroom in it,
The total number of bedrooms for the home is 4,
including anything above the garage?
including anything above the garage.
Is there a bathroom above the garage?
I don't know the answer to that. I can text the builder. He may also be on the. He was going to call into this meeting. I think he was going to call in by the phone, but let me text him.
I believe we have the property owner in the, as an attendee. You want me to promote him to partake in the discussion?
The property owner is, yes, the property owner should be in attendance as well.
Sure.
Builder is going to be on the phone.
Sure, Jay. That sounds good.
Yeah, I'm here.
Mr. is it Monteforte?
Yes,
Did I pronounce that correctly?
yes, Monteforte, yep.
Monteforte.
Mr. Monteforte, I'm David Flanders. I'm on the commission. Just wondering, is there going to be a bathroom in the living area above the garage?
I don't know that. I'm sorry. I didn't have any part in the actual design of this. Mr. Manning, Walter Manning is here. I think he's here.
He's not on the phone, but he just texted me back. There is not a bathroom above the garage.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the commission have any questions for either Mr. Manning or Mr. Monteforte?
I do. Looking at the application materials submitted, I'm wondering whether the wetlands edge was verified by DEM.
It was.
Really? Okay.
We had to get an approval.
The edge was verified by DEM.
Yep.
I'm wondering how you calculated the impervious cover. It looks like you took into account the entire area. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that. What was the
I'm
question?
wondering how you calculated the percent impervious cover. Did you use the entire area of the lot?
Yes, I would
Did.
use the entire area.
Came up with 10% or so.
Yeah, and I also would have included the existing driveway. That's
Well, the
for the lot
proposed
behind.
one. Yes, right, the existing one and the proposed.
Right.
So it's my understanding that under the stormwater manual and just in general practice, that when impervious cover is calculated, the wetland area is excluded from that because the wetland is not considered pervious. So what is your estimate of how much wetland area is on the lot?
When you're referring to the stormwater, are you talking about the state's stormwater manual?
Yes.
Yeah, the
In general.
Well, but so the stormwater manual, the DEM stormwater manual, the exclusion of wetlands has to do with when you're looking at a site for whether it's a redevelopment or not. So if you had an existing site that had a bunch of impervious parking area and buildings on it, and you were trying to see if it was above 40% impervious in order to determine if it was a redevelopment project, you would exclude the wetlands. So if you had a whole bunch of wetlands, it wouldn't count against you as far as for the redevelopment regulations. But for doing sizing of stormwater management practices, you're just looking at the actual area of the wetland and sizing your BMP for, or you're looking at the actual area of the impervious and sizing your BMPs for that area.
Well, whenever I see percent impervious calculations for these types of applications, and in terms of estimating percent impervious cover for a watershed, wetland area is always excluded. And so it's very inconsistent with the way we've reviewed other applications where the wetland area is included here. So I estimated just roughly based on the DEM environmental map that the wetlands look like they're about 30% of the lot, in which case the impervious cover would be closer to 10 rather than 15, or it would be 14% rather than 10 or 9.5. And then that brings us pretty close to the 15 standard if a portion of the garage has been increased. I'm not sure if we can say that it is below the 15% impervious cover standard.
But the 15%, is there a limitation within the town that you wouldn't include the
It's in the
entire lot area?
504 regulations. It's in the regulations.
I believe it's 504.K does have the 15% maximum impervious lot coverage, and that is
Right.
based on the buildable area of the lot. And so I think you
Right.
do have to exclude the wetlands.
Right, it specifically says buildable, you're correct.
And
So
so
I think that needs to be clarified.
I'm sure we can provide that information. I believe we're under it, but we'll verify that.
Okay. Thank you.
Jason, would we need to have that verification before we could go ahead to make our motion?
Not necessarily. I mean, that's something that could be clarified with the zoning board at the time of their special use permit hearing.
Well, if it doesn't meet the, if they increase the size of the garage, there's a real potential that it might not meet the 15. And I absolutely just guesstimated the size of the wetland, so I think we need that information.
There are other options that the applicant could entertain though, such as the driveway.
Yeah.
Other modification they could make to meet that number.
Mhm. The other
But-
question I had on calculations was, how many inches of rainfall did you calculate from the roof runoff? As well as the paved driveway for calculating the rain garden size? What were the inches of runoff?
I mean, we sized the BMPs based on the single family guidance
Right.
document that was issued in conjunction with the stormwater manual, the state's stormwater manual.
Right. It's my understanding from talking to staff at CRMC that that is roughly based on 1 inch of runoff from the impervious area. However, the section G of the section 504 regulations establishes a standard of maintaining pre-development, pre and post-development site conditions for a 24-hour, 25-year rain event. Do you know how many inches that is?
That would be,
I think it's about 6.
sounds about right.
So that's another concern that we're not anywhere near complying with that standard.
I can take a look at that. The alternative to, what we have shown there, as Jay alluded to, we can incorporate pervious driveway, which take care of the driveway area, and just double check on the sizing of the rain garden to be able to handle the 6 inches of rainfall. But I mean, based on my experience with other similar lots, I don't see that as being an issue.
It all depends on how much of the lot is wetland and finding an area to retain the runoff when you have a 2-foot water table. It's could be a little tough.
Right, but we have a place to locate the rain garden. We already have it shown on the plan. And if you were to use the driveway, make the driveway pervious, then you take that runoff away from the rain garden, and you've got an area that you can incorporate right there for next to the driveway for the rain garden for the house. So, if necessary, that can be adjusted to handle the 25-year storm. We also have other real estate in the backyard area that's within the limit of disturbance that can also be utilized.
Another concern I have is that under section M, there's a requirement for site restoration when there's encroachment on the buffer. And the application states no buffer encroachment proposed. But that obviously refers to the DEM buffer, and section 504 of the town regulations establishes a 150-foot local buffer. So the items under section M need to be addressed.
Lorraine,
Mhm.
if I may, that 150-foot town regulation is not a buffer. It is the area that is within the jurisdiction of that portion of the code for the septic system within 150 foot of a wetland. Obviously, if you construct a house within 150 feet of the wetland, there's going to be disturbance of the buffer if it is considered a buffer.
I believe in the past, we've tried to protect the wetland, that 150-foot area to the extent possible, whether or not it was considered a DEM buffer.
We don't have a definition. We don't regulate wetland buffers. We regulate the installation of septic systems for residences within the 150 foot.
Right. I think it's a terminology difference. It's setback. But in the past, we have required replanting and fencing to protect the wetland when there's encroachment on that 150-foot distance.
Well, you certainly can make recommendations based on the amount of disturbance on the property relative to the proximity to the wetland and impervious surfaces. But I think I think you're right. It's just a terminology issue with calling it a buffer. It's not really a buffer that
Right. I get
where
understand.
clearing of it is prohibited.
Right.
Lorraine, when you say in the past we have required, is that what, are you referring to a determination by the Conservation Commission, which would be a recommendation, or are you referring
Yes,
to?
it would be a recommendation to
Okay.
restore
Yep.
the area to the extent possible.
Got it.
The other concern in this case is that there's, the limits of disturbance are very, very close to the actual wetland edge, especially at the garage and where the well is being installed. I find it hard to believe that the construction activity will actually be able to keep those limits intact. It just doesn't seem realistic.
How many feet is that distance?
We have, from the corner of the garage to the closest point of the wetland, we have 20.7 feet. Our proposed limit of work is set at its closest point to the wetland is 10 feet right at that corner of the garage. It does expand out further than that from that point of the wetland.
Yep.
In the vicinity of the well, the limit of disturbance is no closer than 12 feet. Again, it's expanding out from that area. So
yep.
Those are the two closest points, but it is more than 10 feet for the majority of the edge.
Okay.
It may be 10 feet from the edge of the wetland, but it's just a few feet from the limits of disturbance. The limits of disturbance are there to prevent disturbance beyond that point.
The limit of disturbance is 10 feet from the wetland. The corner of the garage is another 10.7 feet from the limit of disturbance.
That's still very, very tight. CRMC allows 25 feet as a reasonable distance.
25 feet is for a coastal area. This is a freshwater wetland and a 10-foot setback.
But they set the 25-foot distance as a reasonable area to allow construction and future maintenance of the.
Right, but in the case of the freshwater wetlands, a 10-foot is a standard setback that is.
But Mr. Clough, can you actually say that if you're pouring a concrete slab, and I think that's what's required for the or specified for the garage, Can that actually be done within 10 feet? You're going to require heavy equipment here.
There's access, from, you'd be accessing from the front with doing some of this work. You're going to have to access around from the back doing some of this work. You have a proposed limit of work. And if that's what is approved with, the town and with the state, with CRMC, then that's what needs to be maintained.
No, I was talking about logistics. Can you keep heavy equipment that have to be used to pour this concrete slab? How are they going to work within a 10-foot radius?
Yeah, well, they're going to be working from the front of the house. They're not necessarily going to be posted up on the corner there, trying, right between the corner of the garage and the limit of disturbance. And otherwise they'll get access around the back, from the other side of it. So, it's something that's going to have to be considered when they do the construction. I mean, they're certainly going to have to work with the area that they have. But yes, I don't see a reason why they can't construct this, with the setbacks that are shown.
That's an easy pour from the driveway. I own a swimming pool business. I can tell you it's an easy pour from the face of the driveway without a doubt.
The other issue with construction is, I'm assuming the house itself is still proposing a foundation rather than a slab.
Yes, it is proposing a foundation.
Given that it's a 2-foot water table, doesn't it make more sense to use a slab in order to avoid excavation and all the filling? The previous plan had 4 feet of filling to accommodate that, the foundation area. And there's always the risk of intercepting groundwater and changing groundwater flow.
I mean, the way that this is proposed here, they're setting the foundation. They got to walk out. They got to walk out around, the lower part of the foundation area. So they are essentially setting this thing at grade. They're placing some fill in the front yard area and coming down the sides. But on the side that's closest to the wetland, it's proposed as a walkout.
That's does anybody else have any more questions of the applicants?
I've got a question for the engineer. Jason, you mentioned that when we were discussing the corner of the garage, you were saying that it was 10 feet from the limit of disturbance and that was 10 feet from the wetland. Was that correct?
Yeah, so the total distance from the corner of the garage to the closest point of the wetland is 20.7 feet.
Okay.
In between that, we're maintaining a 10-foot limit of disturbance minimum to the wetland. So we don't have our limit of disturbance set right at the edge of the wetland. We have a 10-foot minimum that expands out from there.
Do you know why it is that the LOD doesn't match up with the wetland buffer edge?
I mean, there's not a wetland. Oh, why the LOD doesn't match up with the edge of the wetland?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, are you using the term wetland to refer to the 50-foot buffer from a wetland or the wetland itself?
This wetland is less than 3 acres in size, so it doesn't have a 50-foot. Doesn't have
Okay.
a 50-foot wetland.
Okay.
So we've shown a limited disturbance in this case, but we've gotten no closer than 10 feet.
I got you. In the past, there's always been some sort of an exception that was granted that I've seen when an LOD didn't match up with that buffer, but in fairness, they were probably larger than 3 acres.
Okay.
Anybody else have any input, any questions for either the applicant or the engineer? If hearing that, I'd like to get a consensus of what we feel about this application. just, regarding favorability, regarding, questions, stipulations, something that we would want to put into a recommendation to the zoning board, which is what we're charged with at this point. So, Lorraine, do you have any comments that you want to include to a motion to the zoning board?
Well, I don't feel like the applicant has provided enough information for us to make a decision. The percent impervious cover is still in question. We have no information on the ability to meet the calculations for a 25-year storm. Obviously, none of these, it's surprising to me that these factors weren't considered. It's pretty straightforward what the requirements are. There's still a very large building with very tight limits of disturbance, which I think are unrealistic. One option would be to reduce the size and the footprint of the house. Certainly, the driveway would have to be permeable. I'm not sure if a permeable driveway is feasible with a 2-foot water table, though. So I don't think we have enough information to feel that any of these the major requirements have been met. I would recommend denial based on this, that the zoning board deny it.
Based on our not having enough information, that this information would have to be supplied prior to a positive recommendation.
That's my own feeling.
Mary, do you have any thoughts?
It's quite a complicated site, as Lorraine has already demonstrated. So I don't know. There'll be a lot of water involved, and I'm not sure it will be handled correctly.
It's a hydraulic issue, yes.
It's a lot of building for the little area that isn't wetland.
Mhm.
Yeah. Chris, do you have any thoughts?
I don't have any more or anything to add really to what Lorraine said. I think she certainly has the background as well to point those things out. I mean, I think if we're in a position where we don't have enough information, and this is on the schedule for the zoning board, then we're not in a position to make a favorable recommendation.
Yep.
And you can spell it out as to why, and then it will be their obligation to satisfy the zoning board as to any of these issues, I suppose.
I concur, and I think that our motion would be a rather neutral one, that we cannot, for instance, favorably back this project due to a lack of information, which would include an accurate percentage of impervious surface, information on the 25-year storm, and the relationship between the water table and the impervious surface. It is a difficult compromise site, and there is a lot of impervious surface compared to the wetlands that are actually on the site. I think those would be the concerns we would list. I don't know that I would go ahead and say deny at this point, and this is just my personal opinion, only because we're lacking the information. So I would want the wording of any, and again, just personal opinion, saying that we cannot recommend at this time with the amount of information that we've been given and due to those factors. Does anybody else have any thought on items that should be put into our motion to the zoning board?
No, I agree with you, David, that, there's just too much water on this site for this size building and garage with the information we have. I mean, it may be okay, but we can't prove it. We can't, doesn't meet the criteria.
And I had you listed as absent. When did you join the meeting?
About 5 minutes, 6:05, something like that.
Okay, great. Let's put that in the record, Jay. Thank you, Ann. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. So does somebody want to go ahead and just, well, Jay, do you need any more wording that you would put into such a motion?
No, what I would suggest to the commission, modify the first paragraph of the draft motion to reflect the fact that you cannot come to a positive recommendation at this time due to the following issues, or the following lack of information on the following items,
Right?
but be specific to those items as to how they relate to the specific standards within section 504.
Right. And haven't we done that in our discussion?
Yeah, but you're getting, there's been some opinions generated that there's going to be a lot of water, or that it can't handle it. You want to speak specifically to the standards that they need to meet. That is what,
Okay.
that is
Right.
what they are charged with.
Right. So we do not have an exact percentage of the lot or of the buildable area to the impervious surface, the impervious surface to the buildable lot size. We do not have information on the 25-year storm. I believe those are two things that are listed. Did we have anything more that we wanted to, that relate to the standards that we needed more information on? For instance, the water table. Do we have an accurate calculation of the foundation depth to the water table and those implications? I think those are three specific things, right, Jay?
So, yeah, for example, what section of what part of section 504 speaks to depth to the between the foundation to the groundwater table?
There isn't one specifically for that. It relates more to use of lid techniques to the extent practicable. That would be, that's a requirement for the plan.
Well, you know,
To
I would,
your point, Jay, I see what you're getting at and what you're going toward. It is a valid concern. I know it isn't necessarily specified letter by letter in the 504, but it still, I think, and I may be wrong, you'll correct me, should be something that should be taken into consideration for this application. I don't know how that would be applied, but because I know where you're coming from, that we are here to apply the 504 letter by letter and see what meets and what doesn't meet. And so, yeah, there may not be a specific one that relates to this depth in relation to the water table, but it is a valid concern.
sure. So I'll play a little devil's advocate on that and
Sure.
say, is 1 foot separation too close? Is 5 feet too close? And if you make a statement to that extent, and
Yep.
you're advising the zoning board, so the zoning board is going to be looking for your advice,
Right.
they would then say, well, what section of the code speaks to separation?
I understand. I understand.
I think
So,
it would
mean,
come under section I. Does the proposed grading maintain the existing natural drainage patterns to the degree feasible? And that's as close as we can come to the situation for the foundation, since there are no hard and fast standards for that.
And I mean, I'm merely here suggesting things for the board to consider. If
Right.
if the board feels that that is a concern, you can articulate that in your motion. I just, as far as usefulness for the zoning board to weigh on that, I don't know if there is much, but if it is certainly a concern, you absolutely can include it.
All right. Lorraine, do you want to suggest some language that would reflect this concern, which is not directly spelled out in the 504?
Probably section L, minimize wetland and site disturbance. Does the design of the site reflect the least disturbance to the site as possible? And I would have to say no, because it requires just very tight limits of disturbance that are very close to the actual wetland edge. It could be easily reduced by reducing the size of the constructions of the buildings.
Footprint.
And then there's section M also refers to site restoration. And that would mean restoring the disturbed areas using native plants, permanent fencing to demarcate the edge of the protected wetland buffer, restoration of soils that are compacted during construction. None of those were even addressed at all because it was, I guess the applicant was looking at the requirements for DEM, not the South Kingstown regulations.
That is not a
I can
requirement.
summarize these for a motion.
Yeah, I'll just add on that is not a requirement of South Kingstown regulations. The buffer that is being referenced, I believe, is the applicable DEM buffer.
Right,
In this
but this is our
case,
regulation.
That's only us.
applicable DEM buffer is 10 feet, is it not, Mr. Clough?
I mean, the CRMC would typically look for us to maintain a 10-foot buffer, but there isn't actually a prescribed 10-foot buffer for a freshwater well in less than 3 acres in size. So there's no specific buffer requirement. We are maintaining a minimum of a 10-foot buffer plus in this case.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Yes, John.
I just wanted to note, about a year ago, you had an application. I didn't represent them in front of you, but I did in front of the zoning board. And you had made a recommendation. I think the applicant was like at 15.1% lot coverage or impervious lot coverage, and also didn't quite meet the 25-year storm. And the commission had actually recommended approval, even with not making those requirements. When I represented the applicant before the zoning board, the town solicitor instructed the zoning board that they could not grant waivers or variances on those standards. And we ended up having to change the site plan in order to comply with them. So I just wanted the commission to know that no matter what the recommendation, we have to meet those requirements. The zoning board can't waive those. We have to comply with them.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's good information. Thank you.
But from our perspective, we don't know what that would look like. You know, we don't know we still can't make a recommendation because we have no concept of what the impervious cover is or whether there's any ability to meet the runoff controls.
Right.
Or
So
use
Lorraine,
permeable materials.
right. And so Lorraine, that would, allow us to put to the zoning board that we are not able to make a recommendation based on the lack of that information. The fact that they will have to come up with a workable plan in order to get that special use permit that's their bailiwick. But we can go ahead and say that we do not have the information that we need in order to make a positive recommendation, and that's perfectly legitimate.
Right.
And within our purview.
I mean, alternatively, could we just request that the homeowner or the engineer and lawyer representing the homeowner come back at our December meeting and have answers to these questions?
Jay?
That's up to the commission.
All right.
I mean, it feels like if we want to offer the option, I suppose, we may be in a position to offer a favorable recommendation if we had more information, or we
That's
could
good.
go ahead this evening and say that we can't weigh in either direction.
Jay, do we have any time restraints on when we have to make our recommendation to the zoning board?
There's none articulated in the ordinance.
So we
And-
could request of the applicant to come back with the answers to these questions for our December 7th meeting.
I'm going to defer. I'm going to ask John. John, do you know off the top of your head what the limitations are for processing a zoning application? Have they submitted to zoning yet?
No, we haven't. We can't submit to zoning until we have the recommendation.
Okay, so there's no hiccup with timeframes with the zoning department or zoning board processing the application at this point.
There isn't. And in the past, there have been times where the commission has requested additional information and we've come back for it.
Well, John, it seems we're leaning in that direction. And if the applicant does not have any, problems with that, it seems that that's what we would like to suggest. That you come back at our December 7th meeting with answers to, the percentage of impervious and the 25-year storm information and, those questions.
So, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any problem with that. The problem with Zoom meetings is I can't whisper to my client and say, do you have a problem?
Oh, of course. Yes. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Oh, just put a piece of paper in front of your face, John. Well, Mr. Monteforte, do you have a problem with coming back to our December 7th meeting with answers to these questions? Or Mr. Clough?
Myself personally, I have no problem with waiting. I was thinking, how does the future, the builder or the owner, the future owner, would they? But I mean, if it all has to come down, all the answers have to be, all the questions have to be answered, then it seems only logical to get the answers to those questions and then everybody's happy.
Mr. Monteforte, I understood that you were the owner. Am I wrong?
I am the owner. But
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, but to the future, the person that is interested in buying the land.
Oh, okay. Okay. Is that person present here this evening?
They are not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Then Mr. Clough, do you have any objection to that? Coming back.
Me personally, I don't.
Great. Okay.
I know the applicant is just, they're anxious to get going and get into CRMC so they can get going with this project.
I agree. Yeah, we understand and appreciate that. That's definitely true. Well, let's go ahead and schedule for December 7th to come back and get some answers to these questions.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Could you just take a consensus of the board, of the
Sure.
commission to that extent?
Sure. I'll go as a roll call vote on if the membership is amenable to tabling this issue until the December 7th meeting until we get questions to the issues that were raised here this evening. Mary Talbot Rabiano.
I'm in favor of that.
Lorraine Joubert.
I am also in favor of
Matt
moving.
Bradywood.
Yep, I'm in favor.
Ann Heffron.
In favor.
Chris O'Connor.
Yes, in favor.
I too am in favor. So let's go ahead and put that on the agenda for December's meeting, Jay.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Great. Thank you all. Have a good
Thank
rest
you.
of the night.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Monteforte. Appreciate it. Our next order of business is an amendment for the Conservation Commission bylaws incorporating language regarding Conservation Commission duty membership with the Technical Review Committee, amending the bylaws. as we have been handed. So we've all seen them, and this is an issue that we've been discussing. This is just the official language that we would be seeing, or that would be in the town, in the Conservation Commission bylaws. One issue that has been brought up and is reflected in the text is that this is a rotating membership. And of course, when we went around in an informal discussion 3-4 months ago, there was some people saying, well, you know, I have to work, I can't be in it. But we do, and these things come up all the time, and it comes up as well with planning board members, as this is their subcommittee. But it's just essentially making a good faith effort to not just have one person, i.e. myself, do it all the time. So that's really the only change, if you will, in the fact that, okay, we'll have representation on the TRC, voting representation on the TRC, that we'll try to, you know, involve as many members as possible in good faith. So we've read the language. Does anybody have any questions or additions or changes or anything?
I think it's a good way to handle it
Yeah.
by deciding at each month.
Yep. Yep. And we can each bring each other up to speed, give a report at the next Concom meeting as to what was discussed. And there's a lot of sitting around time. There's a lot of discussion about sewers, about parking, and all of these things. But there are also things such as traffic flow and traffic, reports from Beta Engineering that are definitely environmental issues, as well as landscaping and these kinds of things. So, it's a limited amount of things that we can, comment on, but it's very educational and our input is always welcome. So we'll definitely try to do that. Does anybody have any changes they want to make to this wording?
So I'm fine with the wording, but I'm just wondering, was this also okayed? Did it have to be okayed by the planning board?
Yes, they had to take a formal vote, not at a work session, which they did, but later at an actual meeting because it was a public hearing. So if anyone of the public wanted to make a comment regarding the issue, they could come forward and do it. Nobody did. And in fact, my communication system didn't work. So I raised my hand, but nobody could hear me. But I just wanted to let them know I was there. But so everybody agreed that this is the way to go. So if someone wants to make a motion on adding or changing this, making a change to the Article 4 on committees for the Conservation Commission, I'll accept the motion. Oh, come on.
I'll make a motion to adopt the language to Article 4 committees, that one member shall serve as a duty member of the board as a member of the planning board's technical review committee at
Thank
monthly
you.
meetings,
As
Thank you.
drafted.
as drafted.
There you go.
Thanks, Jay. Do I hear a second?
A second.
And do I hear any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Very good. That concludes our new business. Update from staff on planning department activities, Jay?
Oh, yeah, we are very busy. We have town hall. Efforts are being employed to reduce staffing in town hall. So many of us are working remotely, much more than we have in the past.
What reason is for that? Just for COVID?
For the uptick in COVID, the uptick in COVID cases in the state, and locally in the state and the nation.
Yep, yep.
We are busy with applications and a host of other things. Nothing that jumps out at me that is too pertinent to the Conservation Commission at this time, but
Our final
and
item.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Jamie Rabbit, the planning director, is on the call, is in the meeting. I believe he may want to introduce himself and say hi to everyone.
Good evening, Mr. Flanders. How are you?
Hi, Jamie. Fine. Thanks for calling in.
No problem. I just wanted to take a moment tonight. I know you had a relatively light agenda to say hello to everyone. Everyone in town has been very welcoming. I want to
Good.
say I have great staff. Jay, Brian, Lynn, and Carol have been much appreciated in my transition in the town. Jay is right. We are very busy at this time. It's also complicated, as Jay mentioned. We're restricted to about 1.5 people in our department on a daily basis. So there's a little bit of overlap, but the town manager is being cautious, and rightfully so, that if we were to lose one person in our department with a potential COVID, we would lose our department.
Yeah.
So we don't want that to happen.
No.
We'd all be Zooming, and it'd be difficult to function with that. So we are
I agree.
busy and we're managing. We Zoom every day as a staff to try and coordinate everything. But I do appreciate being on board in SK. And if anybody has any questions regarding the department or myself personally, and you wanted to talk, I'd love to pick everybody's brain with regards to your opinions of the department and development in town, so that we can better serve both the commission and the residents of the community. I'm available to speak with anyone at any time.
I would like to say that we've been very happy with Jay as our staff person. He's been on the ball and keeping us in line. So, reminding us of what our duties are and what they aren't. So he's doing a good job.
Yeah, I'll second that for sure.
I agree.
Thank you all.
And I'm also happy to meet you, Mr. Rabbit, and welcome you to the department and to the town.
Zooming makes introductions a little more difficult. I look forward to meeting everyone in person and being able to interact. I also look forward to meeting town hall staff.
You won't recognize us with masks on.
I know everybody. Yeah. Hopefully we'll be demasked in about a year.
Yeah, I think a year's about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for calling in. This is good.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Before I adjourn, does anybody else have anything for the public good to mention? Anything at all? Otherwise, our next meeting is December 7th. And if anybody has any ideas of adding agenda items, to either talk to Jay or myself within the next couple of weeks, and we'll be all set. So the time now is 7:04, and I'm going to
Mr.
adjourn the
Chairman?
meeting. Yes, Jay.
One last thing, it just dawned
Okay.
on me.
Yep.
Next meeting date is December 1st.
Oh, really?
Tuesday, December 1st.
You're right. Yeah.
We are lined up to have a special planning board meeting that evening, starting at 7.
Oh, okay.
So we would need to try to keep the meeting to 45 minutes, 50 minutes tops, so I can switch over and open the Zoom meeting for the planning board. So you guys would start at 6, planning board starts at 7, as long as I get about 10 minutes in between to open up.
So why not have it on the 7th? If that
Monday.
we wouldn't have that time constraint.
Monday, the 7th?
I looked at my calendar. I guess it would have to be the 8th, but for some reason I had written December 7th as our meeting. But I guess we should do it for the 1st and try to keep it short.
Yeah, December 8th may be the planning board work session. That's the second
Okay.
Tuesday of the month.
Yep. Okay. If we have an active agenda, would the membership be amenable to starting at, say, 5:30 if there was a squeeze on the time?
I could do that.
That'd be
That's fine.
fine.
I could too.
Let's keep it open as an option, Jay. If you think by looking at it and we think by looking at it, 6 o'clock is fine. Generally, our meetings run under an hour unless we have more than one application. So let's go ahead with your plan on the 1st at 6 o'clock.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Anything else? It is 7:05. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks very much, all.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Good to
night.
virtually see you.
Good night.